Okay, in this video we are going to review combining like terms and distributing. So let's start with number 1. We want to simplify. Negative 3 times all of x minus 8 plus 5x minus 4. So the first thing that we are going to want to do is distribute the negative 3. Remember, distribute means to multiply. So we're going to do negative 3 times x, which is negative 3x. Negative 3 times negative 8, well, a negative times a negative is a positive, so I'll write plus, and 3 times 8 is 24. We do not distribute the negative 3 to the 5x or the negative 4 because they are not in parentheses, so we're just going to bring those down. Next, we will combine like terms. The like term with negative 3x is positive 5x. If we combine those, negative 3 plus 5 is 2x. And 24 is a like term with negative 4. So 24 plus negative 4, which is the same thing as saying 24 minus 4 is 20. There are no other like terms to combine, so number 1 is done. Number 2, we will also distribute, but notice this time we're going to be distributing a 1/4 or a fraction. If you take 1/4 of something, that just means to divide by 4. So we're going to take that divide by 4 and distribute it into both terms inside the parentheses. So 1/4 of 16x is 4x because 16x divided by 4 is 4. 1/4 of negative 8 is 2. Notice I brought down a negative because this is a positive 4 that is divided into a negative 8. And then bring down the 1, which is outside the parentheses. Once you do that, you can combine the like terms of negative 2 and 1. So our answer will be 4x plus 1. Number 3, simplify 2/3 of 9x minus 3 minus 17x. Since this is a fraction and what's on the inside is divisible by the denominator of 3, that's what we are going to do. We're going to divide that 9x and that negative 3 by 3. 9x divided by 3 is 3x. Negative 3 divided by 3 is negative 1. But notice there's still this numerator of 2, so we're going to leave that on the outside and bring down the negative 17x. Now we're going to distribute that 2, which is going to be multiplied into the parentheses. 2 times 3x is 6x. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. And our last step here would be to combine our like terms. 6x minus 17. 6x minus 17x is negative 11. And we'll write the x beside it and bring down the negative 2 because it does not have any like terms. Number 4, we are going to use this rectangular picture for numbers 4 and 5. Number 4 says write the perimeter. Perimeter means to add all sides. So that's what we are going to do. Notice there are 4 different sides, so let's fill out our picture. This side is also 3x minus 2, and since this side is 8, the other side is also 8. If we're going to find the perimeter, we're going to add all those sides together. (3x minus 2) plus the other side, 3x minus 2 plus the other side, and plus the last side. That's all 4 sides that needs to be added together. And now we can combine our like terms. 3x plus 3x is 6x. And our last like terms are the constants. Negative 2 plus negative 2 plus 8 plus 8. Well, I know 8 plus 8 is 16, minus 2 is 14, minus 2 more is 12. And the last one, number 5, find the area. Area is length times width. So we're going to look at this rectangular picture and identify what's our length and our width. It doesn't really matter. We can say this is our length, this is our width, and we need to multiply those together. So 8 times 3x minus 2. So we're really just distributing. 8 times 3x is 24x. 8 times negative 2 is negative 16. And that is your review for combining like terms and distributing.
And let's move on to linear equations. So 1 and 2, we've got a simple one-step equation. So remember, that's like reverse order of operations. So we're going to add and subtract first, multiply and divide second. So I'm going to look at that and I'm going to say, well, the opposite of addition is subtraction. So I'm going to subtract 1 on both sides, which is going to leave us with 2x equals 7. And then our second step is multiply and divide. Well, the opposite of multiplication is division. So we'll divide both sides by 2. And we're going to get x equals 7 over 2 or 3.5, whichever you prefer there. The second one, same thing, we're going to do add and subtract first. So I'm going to get rid of my addition by subtracting 3 on both sides. Remember, if you take a negative away from a negative, it's going to get even more negative. So we get x over 4 equals negative 9. And then we need to undo that division that we have. So we're going to multiply on both sides. Okay, and so x is going to equal negative 36. Our next two are going to be multi-step equations. So I've written that don't call me after midnight off to the side. You guys should be familiar with that. But for number 3, we're going to start with distribution, but there are no parentheses, so we're good. So we can go ahead and combine our like terms that are on the same side of the equation. So I've got negative 9x and negative 5x is going to give us negative 14x. And we still got that positive 22, so we can't forget that. And that's all equal to 5x minus 7. Our next step is going to be to move the smallest variable. So I'm going to subtract over my 5x to the other side. So we are going to be left with negative 19x plus 22 equals negative 7. Our next step is add and subtract. So we're going to get rid of that addition that's happening by subtracting 22 on both sides. So we end up with negative 7 minus 22, which gives us negative 19x equals negative 29. And our last step is going to be multiplication and division. So in order to undo that imaginary multiplication that's happening there, we will divide by negative 19 on both sides. And a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So we just get x equals 29 over 19. And don't worry if you are left with a fraction, it is okay. That is just fine. I'm going to move our steps over to give us some room to solve here. So for our next one, our first step is going to be distributing. So I'm going to distribute my negative 8 to both terms. So I've got negative 8 minus 32x plus 7x equals negative 25 minus 8x. Our next step is combine like terms, so I'm going to combine my x's over here. So I've got negative 32x plus 7. It's going to give us a negative 25x, and our negative 8 stays. And on the right side, we don't have any terms to combine because we've got an x term and a constant. So now it's time to move the smallest variable. So I'm going to take my negative 8x and I'm going to undo it. I'm going to add it to the other side. So I end up with negative 8. And we're going to combine those. So it'll be negative 25 plus 8 equals a negative 17x equals negative 25. Then we will just move our constant over. We get negative 17x equals negative 17. And if we divide by the coefficient of x on both sides, we end up with x equals 1. 2 more for this section, guys. These are some special cases. So we're going to follow the same steps that we did. Here there's no distributing, but we can combine some like terms. So we get 4x minus 9 equals 4x, and then if you combine negative 8 and negative 1, we get minus 9. You're already going to start to notice that those are equal, right? But if you must keep working, if that's going to drive you crazy, you can. You can add that smallest term over. They're going to cancel out, and you're going to get 4x equals 4x. If you still want to keep going, you can. You can divide by 4. And you're going to still be left with x equals x. So guys, remember, if you get down to the end and it's a true statement, so if it's x equals x or 1 equals 1 or 2 equals 2, anything like that, if it's true, that means it's going to be all real numbers. Okay, so this solution is going to be all real numbers. For the next one, we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to combine our constants. So it's going to be 7x minus 2 equals 7x minus 17. Then we want to move our smallest variable. So it doesn't matter which one you do, they're the same. They're going to cancel out though. So here we're left with negative 2 equals negative 17. And we know that that is not the case. I would much rather owe someone $2 than owe them $17. So that is not true. So if it's a false statement, the solution is no solution. So make sure you remember those on your quiz.
All right, section 1.3, we're solving inequalities. Remember, it's just the same as equations. We are just going to try to pay attention at the last step. If we are multiplying or dividing by a negative, we are going to flip that inequality over. So number 1, we're going to divide both sides by negative 4. I did divide by a negative, so I'm going to flip my inequality. And there's my answer. Number 2, we're going to try to get all of our variables on the same side. So we're going to move those first. And then we're going to get all of our constants on the same side. I'm going to kind of move up here. All right. I am not dividing by a negative, so I'm going to keep my inequality the same way and get my answer. Maybe that helps. All right, number 3, we're going to distribute the negative. So we're basically multiplying both things in the parentheses by a negative 1. All right, and so this, you can imagine that this is a negative 1 in front of the x, so we're going to divide by negative 1. So I am going to flip my inequality. So my answer is negative 34. All right, distribute. Then I'm going to combine my like terms. On the same side first. All right, and we'll to the other side, and we're going to combine our variables together. And then we'll combine our constants together. Right? And we're always going to move our variables first. I'll get better at this. And then we're going to divide by 7 on both sides. And remember, it is okay to have a fractional answer. So your answer is -4. I'm going to try that again. -4/7 is less than x, or that can also be written as x is greater than. We're going to keep the inequality pointing the same direction as the variable, so notice how it's open towards the x on both ways to write it. So either one of those works. You don't have to flip it over if you don't want. All right, 2 more. All right, so these are some EOC type questions that you may see. Given the equation below, which of the following has to be the missing piece of the equation to make the equation true? So we are trying to figure out what goes in this blank so that the statement is true. The easiest way that I like to think about this is we have 18x over here, and we need 15x over here. So we need to go down 3 x's. So the only option that we have with a -3x is option C. We're going to check that out though, just to make sure. So does 3 minus 12 equal -9? Yes, it does. If you wanted to prove that using some math, we could do this. We could move everything over. -9 minus 3 is -12. And we're going to move our 18x over. 15x minus 18x is -3x. That's exactly what we chose. And the very last one, determine the value of the constant term. Remember, your constant is the number that is not attached to a variable. So our constants in this case are going to be -5 and -8. We need to combine those two together. And -5 and -8 creates -13. And your C is your constant. So -13 is your answer.